Righty, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Outpost Relationships panel. We're so glad that you're here today. Woo woo. It's good stuff. We have a fun night planned. I think we have a really good conversation in store for you all. We're glad that you're here. Before we go into conversation, though, and before we go into the panel, we wanted to start off tonight with a game, some giveaways, some prizes. So to let you guys know what's up for grabs tonight and what you're going to be playing for, we have the new Outpost beanies. How many of you saw the reels for those? Pretty great, pretty great. Pastor Bob did an amazing job, by far the best reel. It was fantastic. But if you don't want a beanie, maybe you want to play for a Leaf and Bean gift card. Who doesn't love coffee? Yes. And then last but not least, there's going to be the opportunity to play for another merch item of your choosing from our merch table. Anything that you want on there could be yours for free tonight. So to demonstrate what game you'll be playing, I'm going to actually ask John Iacucci to come on up here really quick. So for this game, how many of you have ever watched the YouTube channel Smosh? SMOSH. Couple people, like 3 hands. Is this like more of a millennial thing? Oh, okay. Some people. So there's this game that they would play on this channel where somebody will drink some water, and they'll have the water in their mouth, and they'll be holding it, and then someone else will come out and do everything that they can within 30 seconds to make the person laugh. And how we know they're laughing is because the contents of the water spits out in front of them, and it's hilarious. So people in the front row, just take a step back when it comes time. But yeah, so we have some props in the back that you're gonna be able to use. You could also just come up, right? So like, I could come out and I could have something ridiculous, and I could just like look at John and maybe like that the sight. I mean, I was gonna get really dark for a second, but like maybe you could just say something that's really funny. Maybe you got like that knock joke sitting, like sitting in a rainy day for like today. Today's the day to use it. You could say something to make them laugh. Make like a dad joke. I don't know any dad jokes because I'm not a dad. If Stephen Nichols was here, he would have a joke for you. But yeah, you could try whatever you want. The goal of this is to make the other person laugh, and you're competing against each other, right? So we're gonna have 3 rounds. If you hold the water in for 30 seconds, you win the prize. If you make the person laugh, you win the prize. There's 3 rounds of this, 3 prizes up for grabs. Don't be intimidated. Get creative with this. It's gonna be awesome. So we would love some volunteers. Number 1, who feels like they're funny tonight? Who feels like they're ready to go? A hand shot up right away. Come on up. Who's that? Scott. Scott's coming up here. Who feels like they are stone cold tonight? Yeah, let's give it up for Scott. Who's stone cold tonight? Who's like, you're not gonna get me to laugh no matter what. I'm gonna be able to keep it straight-faced. Yo, I think Cole does have his hand up. Come on up, Cole. Come on up here. Give it up for Cole. So Scott's gonna go back with John. They're gonna get prepped here real quick. Cole Whaley, welcome. Yo, Jared, if you wanna put the music back on, actually, that'd be wonderful. Get some tunes going here. It's too quiet. Yeah, go ahead and sit right here. Do with that what you want. I don't have a piece of paper for you. I'm so sorry. This is your water. Don't fill up yet though. What a vibe. What a vibe. Put it in the cap of the water bottle. Rebecca Young, thank you very much. She's a nurse. She's a nurse, ladies and gentlemen. She knows these things. Cole, how confident are you feeling? Scale of 1 to 10. 9? Okay, that's pretty confident. Are you good like dead facer? Like nothing phases you? They're just like... If he wants, he won't laugh, ladies and gentlemen. Cole's ready. Scott's ready. Oh yeah, you gotta put the water in your mouth. Come on now. Don't choke on the gum. All right, 30 seconds on the clock, starting now. 30 seconds is up. Cole did it. Scott, that was amazing, though. Round of applause for Scott. Thank you, Scott. Cole, congratulations. You get a prize of a beanie, a gift card, or an apparel item. What would you like? What would you like? You'll take the beanie. He'll take the beanie. Ladies and gentlemen who are running the merch shop, Cole gets a beanie. Congratulations, Cole. Yeah, that's yours. You get to, yeah, if you play, you get a free water bottle, too. Fun fact. That's part of this. So, we have 2 more rounds. We need some more volunteers. Who feels like they can crack someone tonight? Come on, we need some confidence out here. Who's funny? Who's confident? If not, I am gonna call someone up here and have fun with this myself. So, anyone want to? Thank you. He is funny. All right, who thinks they can stand up to Caleb? Fletcher. Whoa, Bree. No, Bree had her hand up. Come on up, Bree. Too late. Okay, but Bree, come on up. Fletcher's got the next one. Nick Sorbonne, you are gonna get called out next time, so try to convince someone else to come up here. I just want you to know it's coming. Yo, you gotta get it out now. Get your water bottle. Bree, what are you playing for, Bree? So the options left are either like an Outpost apparel item, like any of the things that we have, or the Leaf and Bean gift card. Leaf and Bean gift card? Yeah, that's a good play. Do you feel like do you feel like you're ready for this? Like, are you a stone-faced kind of person, or do you laugh pretty easily? Do we need to pray for you? Are you okay? Well, we'll talk about that later. No. But seriously. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry you're feeling stone cold today. But you know what? Today's the day to feel stone cold. Yeah, today's the day. All right, we're giving them another moment. I think. Oh, they're ready to go. Okay, go ahead and take that sip. No, you got to fill it up though. Are you? Yeah. All right. 30 seconds on the clock, starting now.
It's on. Oh yeah. How you doing, Ball? Really? She said that to you? Really tough. You gotta hang in there, guy. I know sometimes you get down and you just gotta remember that, Jesus loves you and things are gonna be okay. No, you're good enough. Just hang in there. That girl's cheeks are huge.
That was really
good. Did you swallow the water so that you didn't spit it out? Okay, time. Then congratulations, you win. Would you like the card or the apparel item? Gift card. You got the gift card. Caleb, great job though. Let's give it up for Caleb one more time. You're welcome. Have the confidence. All right. Does anyone not named Nick Sorbonne want to come up here? Feeling confident, playing for an apparel item. All right, Sorbonne, come on up here. You're gonna do great. And then, last but not least, who else is feeling stone cold? Fletcher is feeling stone cold. Fletcher, come on up here. The great part is you get a free water bottle, Fletcher. So we're glad that you're here. Did you turn this off? No, you didn't. Okay, that was awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe like aim like for like this area right here, like try not to spit at the person or me. Wait, what? Who's that? What? Okay, he's ready to go? All right, 30 seconds on the clock, starting now. Oh, wait. Yeah. Ready? Starting now. Fletcher, congratulations. You get an apparel item. We'll let them know. Great job. Great effort out there. All right. Thank you very much, guys. All right, we're giving our best effort out there. One more time for all the people who came out here tonight. Thank you very much. So, we're here at the Outpost Relationship Panel, and we are excited to have a conversation surrounding relationships. One thing that we wanted to say on the front end is the panelists coming up here, we're not saying that we're experts at all in how to do relationship well and stuff like that. I think that there's gonna be worthwhile things to be said, but this isn't the only way to do relationship. We're not coming up here to say this is how to do it, follow us, and it's all gonna work out perfectly. This is more of a conversation to share experiences, to share stories, to empathize, and maybe give some insights that could be helpful to the people that are in the room today. I think a lot of times, I know I've gone to panels like this, and it feels like if I can't do things exactly the way that these people are telling me, or my experience isn't exactly the same as their experience, then somehow I'm lesser, or I'm missing out, or it's not worthwhile to me. And so that was something that on the front end here, we just really wanted to focus in on and say is we're here to share experiences. We think that there is gonna be wisdom that gets shared, but we're not telling you that if your story doesn't look exactly like the people who are on stage today, then you're doing something wrong, or we're doing something better. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So that's gonna be the panel tonight. But before we unveil our panelists, we also want to take tonight and introduce two ministries that are gonna be launching up here at Outpost, and we have a video to show you to give you some insight on that, our Outpost men's and women's ministries. Yep. Sorry, technical difficulties. It's Emily's.
So for women's ministry, we decided to title it Grounded. And really that idea stemmed from kind of thinking about what the women in our community want and need, and really wanting something that was at its foundation based in truth and vulnerability and community.
We are going to be calling it Outpost Men's Ministry. We're taking the lazy route, yes, but yeah, Outpost Men's Ministry. It's going to be awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. Simple yet understated. I was going to say something funny. I was going to say not Proverbs 31, anything related. Yeah, it's really not going to be just a time to, although, sharing feelings has its place, it's not going to be a time where we just kind of come together and empathize with each other for 2 hours and then go home. The phrase that I like to kind of repeat to myself is this is not just a ministry for women, it's a ministry made up of women. And so these grounded nights that we're doing is really trying to create a good environment for people to start to get to know each other, because we want to start planting the seeds of friendship and community now so that we can kind of reap the benefits later on when we do our studies over the summer and events in the future.
Well, we're going to have fun. We're going to have an Alpha, Beta, and Sigma night, and we're going to have activities each time. Alpha night's going to have wings. It's going to be great. And we're just going to explore what does it look like to be a man from a worldly perspective and in those three categories, but also how do we apply scripture to that and figure out how we can be the men that we're created to be, because we're all created differently.
Anybody from the ages 18 to 29, that kind of college or post-college life, people that attend Calvary, people that don't attend Calvary, Christian, non-Christian people, women specifically for Grounded. And why? Because I think we've seen just in overall the life of Outpost, just the fruit that having a truly well-rooted community, a well-knit community, breeds the most fruit for the kingdom. And so in order to sow the most down the line, we've got to kind of put in the work right now to get to know each other. And we have big expectations. You know, we are hoping for a lot of vulnerability. We're hoping for a lot of just human-to-human connection, and that takes time and effort and work. But it's going to be fun work. It's going to be a good time.
Because it's going to be a great group of men. We have really worthwhile, I think, conversations that are planned, and there's going to be free food too, so can't beat that. But in all seriousness, it's a way to get to grow with some of the men in Calvary and men in Outpost. You know, again, just like the women's ministry, it's going to be 18 to 29, and an opportunity to grow in community, but also maybe start asking some questions about yourself or the men around you that you've wanted to ask. So we want to go in, and we want people who want to go in too, and all are welcome.
So both nights will be happening at the same time. It will be 6:30, March 11th at the church.
Friday night, March 11th, 6:30 p.m. It's going to be incredible. Men and women, you should show up 100%. I don't know why she's laughing. It's going to be amazing. It's not a joke. Be there. It's going to be dope.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we are so excited to launch Outpost Men's Ministry. Men in the house, give it up for that. Woo! Outpost Men's Ministry. And then we are also very excited to launch Grounded. In case you didn't hear it, it's named Grounded. Ladies are hype. We have some incredible ministry teams as well who are involved in running these ministries. We have a group of 8 women who have come together and planned what's going to end up being 3 different Grounded nights over the course of the semester here. They're basically going to be once a month from here until the month of May, the Grounded nights and the men's ministry nights. We're really excited for that. They're going to be held here at Calvary Assembly of God. So hopefully we'll see you back here next week at 6:30 p.m. For men's and women's nights. So with that, we're here to talk about relationships this evening. And how it's going to work is we have 2 parts to this. So we have some questions that are planned, some things that we specifically wanted to talk about, and that's going to be the first half of this, maybe even the first third of this, really. And then we're going to take a quick break, quick intermission. There's some seltzers out there, like Wegman seltzers, stuff like that. There are some snacks. We're going to take like a 5-minute intermission so that then afterwards, you guys have been asking us questions over the course of the week, and we have been really enjoying seeing that you guys are engaging with these questions, and we want to be able to answer them. And so we're going to take the second half of the panel, or the other 2/3 of the panel, to really dive into those questions and hopefully bring some answers or some thoughts to things that you guys have been asking about or you guys have been thinking about. So without further ado, I would like to invite our panelists, John Iacucci, Kaylee Iacucci, Paul Nichols, and Olivia Backrath. Come on out. So while they're getting seated, when we were planning this panel, the concept that we thought about, yeah, you're good right there. The concept that we were thinking about when we were planning this was the idea of, and it's found in, oh my gosh, what is it? Deuteronomy? Proverbs? Ecclesiastes, so close. I know my Bible, guys, I promise. But, the idea of a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And how we, and maybe you've heard that before, but basically, like standing alone, it's pretty easy to fall apart. But when you're grouped together in community, when you're grouped together with others, it's a lot harder to break, and it's a lot easier to be strong and enter into whatever it is you have. And so where we were going with this is the idea of, in a marriage, because we're talking about a relationship in that way, right? So in a marriage, there's the 3 strands. There's yourself, there's your spouse, and then there's God. And the reality is, some of us in this room are dating, some of this room are single, some of the people in this room are married. And so we wanted to, have a discussion centered on how do we, grow 3 strands that are able to be strong together? How do we also focus on our strand with God, like our relationship with God, whether we're single, whether we're dating, or whether we are married, so that ultimately we can, we can have a cord of 3 strands that is strong and capable, but that there's many stages, many facets to that. So that's where we're at right now. We have 3 questions to open up with, and the first question that I have for our panelists. Well, first, I want you guys to introduce yourself. I've been talking a lot. Go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, like who you are, what your status is.
My name is Paul Nichols. I teach kindergarten at Jefferson Road Elementary in Pittsburgh. And my status is single. I represent the singles out there.
For now.
For now.
For now. That's temporary. My name is John Ikuchi. I am 26 years old, and I'm married.
Sure. I'm Kaylee Iacucci, married to this guy here. I work at Starbucks, and I love their coffee, so it works out really well. I feel like that's my fact.
I work at Calvary. I didn't know we were doing jobs.
Well, I feel like Paul started with jobs, so.
I had nothing else to say but single.
Fair.
Okay, so I'm Olivia. I'm dating Caleb Longwell.
Yeah, Caleb.
So funny.
If we're doing jobs, I work at Starbucks' best friend Chipotle, so love that. Wow, okay.
You got one, and that's what matters. Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here today. So the first thing we want to talk about is maybe on the, a little bit more on the negative side, I guess, but in your time and in your, in your relationships, your time being single, your time in relationship, what has caused you to lose closeness with God or lose closeness with your significant others? What kind of things can kind of come up in the way of those things?
Everyone's staring at me, so I will go first. I think that I have this very specific image of my head of standing at the kitchen sink doing dishes and being furious. But in all seriousness, I was standing there and I was like, I'm so frustrated that John's not helping me with the dishes. But then I realized, I never asked him to help me with the dishes. And I was like, well, if I've never made that desire known, then how should he know that I want that from him? And I think my takeaway from that was that I need to express my feelings and the things that I want out of our relationship in order to actually receive that. And I think when I don't do that, I get resentful and I get mad, and then I want to do nitpicky things that are passive aggressive, and you have to fight against those desires when that happens. And I think that not sharing those things kind of puts up a wall in our relationship. So
Same. That's a great word. Paul or Livy, I think.
Yeah, so I could speak to kind of both sides. I would say in terms of weakening my strand with God, that I would say started freshman year of Roberts. And that was really just due to busyness and kind of becoming independent for the first time in my life, because I was homeschooled K through 12, so was always around family and went to church my whole life. So it's pretty easy to be a Christian as a child. But then going to Roberts was the first time that I really had to choose to make my faith my own. So I'd say busyness and just secret sin that I was walking alone in, things like that is definitely what hurt my relationship with God, until I found really good, community and just people who helped me push in to grow closer to God. So I'd say in terms of that strand, those were kind of 2 things that hurt. And then although I am single now, I've been in a couple of relationships. And so I'd say in like past relationships, things that have hurt my relationship with my significant other would be like a really bad lack of communication. So like, honestly, similar to the dishes situation, but not with dishes. I feel like there's so many things that like made me upset in relationships that, first of all, shouldn't probably have made me upset, but did. And I'd never communicate it. Instead, I would just kind of get upset and then expect the other person to know that they should be doing this thing to make me feel better. And a lot of that came from insecurity too. So I'd say like a lack of confidence, that's the biggest advice I'd give for if you're single now, like working on your confidence and who you are in God is huge, and communicate a lot.
Something that you guys, like, or I think you, Paul, just brought up here, and we're already deviating just a little bit, but obviously we're talking about relationships, but you also brought up community. What kind of role does developing healthy community play into having healthy relationships with God and a significant other, or does it play a role? You know, like, am I okay if I'm just going into a relationship and I don't really need friendships and stuff like that? How would you guys interact with that question?
I'd say community is always important. I think friendships and any sort of like support system that you have in like and for yourself is gonna end up helping your relationship eventually. And so surrounding yourself with people that, you know, like are supportive to you and know your values and know your negative tendencies and can call you out on them and like really support you in those things is actually like really, really important to have in a relationship too, because your significant other is not gonna be everything. They can't be. It's not fair to ask that of them. So to have a community, to have a support system is not only healthy for you as a person and as an individual, but also for your partner.
That's a great answer. Thanks, Libby. And I think you just hit on something really good that I want people to key in on, was like, your significant other can't be everything, you know, all the time. Like that is an inappropriate weight to put on anyone. And I'm assuming you guys would agree with that. But I know even in the relationships I've seen around me in my own life, like when people do that, it does not lead to had to. We're starting to talk about, you know, like divorce or traumas and those things, so I had to make some laughter happen. No, but like when people do make someone their everything, like it does lead to unhealthiness. It does lead to, you know, blown expectations, because we really can't do that.
So how do we know if we're making one person everything? Like, how do you tell if you're doing that?
Great question.
Thoughts, team?
Okay, yeah, I can definitely speak to that. I'd say my second relationship, I was a freshman in college, and I didn't really have any community. I didn't have any friends. I went to Roberts, didn't know anybody. I tried to get involved, but was kind of a loner. I was a commuter too, so like.
You did your best.
I did my best. The best wasn't the best, but it was okay. So like, I would literally spend all of my time with this person. And I had really no true friendships outside of that. And there was times where like I would actually skip community events to just spend time with this person. So I feel like it was pretty clear for me when I got out of that relationship, and I don't want to say alone, because I wasn't alone, but like I didn't really have anything or anyone to like turn to. I had close friends to turn to, but I don't know, not in the same way that I have now. And I feel like I think when you are relying on one person, you kind of stick into something longer too. So like, I feel like I was in that relationship longer because of that. So I think you really put a lot of pressure on that person, and you expect them to be perfect, and you need them to be perfect, because they're kind of like, they're keeping you going. And so if they do something that bothers you or hurts you, it kind of crushes you, and that's what it was for me. So I think those are good factors to kind of weigh. Like if that person is really just driving every single part of your attitude and mood, and like you have no one else aside them, and that's pretty dramatic. It doesn't have to be that extreme, but that's how it was for me.
That's good. Awesome. Well, to flip the side now, and thanks guys for even rolling with that extra question I threw in there. What do you do to strengthen your strands? What do you do to strengthen your relationships with, with God or your significant other? And how do those maybe even intertwine?
So actually, I should have started going to therapy sooner, but I think a good way to start. But
You already went. You went. You did it. You did the hard work.
I did, and I think that is something that both strengthened my relationship with God and strengthened my relationship with Caleb. Because I remember, this is just a small example. There's a lot of other things that it's really like just having that kind of support system. I really recommend it to everybody, honestly. But for me, I tend towards anxiety, and how anxiety works is it latches onto things that are important to you, and it makes you feel out of control. And so, for me personally, what my anxiety likes to latch onto is relationships, and specifically romantic relationships. And I remember having this one conversation with Caleb when we first started dating. We were talking about how he likes to have like space to recharge, introvert space, nothing crazy. And I tend to cling in relationships. And I remember being a little bit nervous about that because those are such like opposite behavioral tendencies. I was worried that like I wasn't gonna be able to give him the space that he wanted. I was gonna cling and it was gonna be a mess, blah, 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 And so I talked to my therapist about it, and I remember thinking about it, and I ended up asking her something along the lines of, should I desire more space? Should I desire time to myself? And she said yes, and this is crazy to me because I realized that I had to rethink how my brain thought about space and individuality in relationships, and I realized that it's actually a good thing to desire space, to support yourself and things like that. And how that ties into my relationship with God is I spend most of my time with God alone. And so if I was spending all my time with Caleb and I didn't have any time alone, then my relationship with God would have suffered, And so because I realized and started trying to desire space and individuality, I ended up being a better partner to Caleb, and I had a better relationship with God because of it. So.
That's awesome. It's really good. Thanks, Libby. Other folks.
Right? We worked that one out well.
Communication.
Good work, fam. So is the question, how do we strengthen ourselves individually or each other, or both, or neither?
Any of the, so it could be how do you strengthen your strand, how do you strengthen your and God's strand?
How do you get strong?
How do you get strong? Any lifters in the room? No? All right, no, I'm just kidding. What'd you say?
He said no lifting for him.
Oh, it's okay, Paul.
You have a lot of other great activities.
I think that there are different things that I'm learning about how to be a healthy individual, and I think God has a desire for us to be a healthy person overall, and I think that a lot of aspects go into being a healthy individual, but I think if we're healthy as people, that makes our marriage healthy. I think, and that's something that I try to keep in mind. And one of the ways that I try to be healthy is I honestly just try to like work out regularly for myself. Like I made the joke about lifting, but like for me that is like such a refreshing time because it like renews my energy. It's time to like myself. Like I don't really have to like think about anything else, and it's good time for me to just like kind of renew my energy. And so that's kind of one thing that I just try to do to strengthen myself as an individual, like actually literally, but also just as a person.
It's really good. Yeah, I know in my own life, like having space to exercise impacts like creating space for relationship with God or cleaning my room or cooking or doing, you know, like all those little things that I don't want to do, but are actually like make me feel super refreshed.
Yeah. I actually read this article today that there are like 6 different kinds of rest. So if you're interested in that, I can send it to you. But like basically the idea is that there's like sensory rest, there's physical rest, emotional rest, sleeping, like there's different kinds of things. So throwing that out there.
Sounds really cool. We might put that on the Outpost page tonight afterwards.
All right.
Awesome. So last question for the structured time. Something that I think a lot of us find in church culture, and I know like everyone up here has grown up in church culture. So if you haven't, you might not have experienced some of these things, but church culture has a lot to say about relationships, about dating. You know, a buzzword can be like purity and stuff like that. We want to believe, you know, a lot of it is really well-intentioned, but just because something is well-intentioned doesn't mean that it's healthy or doesn't mean that it's going to be worthwhile. And things can affect people differently. So I'm curious to hear from you guys, like, what are some things that you were taught growing up that maybe had negative ramifications on relationships that you entered into later in life, or things that you're still even, no, not that part. Things that maybe had some negative ramifications as you were, you know, as you were growing up.
I know this one. So for the first one, I've had a good answer. So I definitely was your good Christian kid or whatever. And I had a special friend because I was not allowed to date. Any special friends out there? Anybody ever had a special friend? Show of hands of the special friend world. Thank you. I know you're out there. You don't have to raise your hand. I know you're out there. So I had a special friend. And I remember going out with someone that I trust, that I respect to this day, a million times over, and going out when I was starting my special friendship, and this was like an older person. And the older person said to me, I wanted to hold her hand. That was what it was. I was a freshman in high school, so it was a big deal. It wasn't Kaylee. Love you though. So I wanted to hold her hand, and this person, I remember when we went out, was like, if you're holding hands at 14, then you're kissing at 16, and then what are you doing at 18? And I remember being like, huh? I was like, that doesn't, mathematically speaking, that doesn't seem to make sense. But I do feel like that there can be an unhealthy mindset then, or at least what it caused in me was this unhealthy mindset that when you start that relationship, or when you start that, whatever you call it, courtship, special friendship, whatever you do, like when you start that, the clock is ticking somehow. That it's only a matter of time until things progress, and it's only a matter of time until things go too far. And I think that that's not healthy. Like I don't think that there are time limitations, and we'll get into the purity conversation or the boundaries conversation later, but like I don't think that there are time limitations, or that you need to put the pressure on yourself of where you should or should not be at a certain time in your relationship. And so that was honestly like a frame of mind, even at 14, where I was like, that doesn't seem to make sense. And now looking back at 26, I'm like, that definitely doesn't make sense.
Can I ask something? How did you like get out of that mindset? Because it sounds like it took a little bit of time, but
yeah. So here's the thing. I wouldn't say that I kept the mindset, but that person also had significant authority to set rules in my life, I will say, at the same time. So while I didn't necessarily believe that mindset, I lived by it. And so to me, there's an aspect of submission in that, which I am all for submission to authority. And that's why I would say I didn't keep the mindset, but I listened to the authorities in my which I still think is a good thing to listen to authorities in your life, even if you don't think that they are always correct.
Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I also had a special friend, so high five. I thought that was only a homeschool thing, so welcome to the
I was
the club.
honorary homeschooled.
Oh, okay. So, so I think that idea of like, so like a special friend is kind of the idea that like the whole courtship thing, that's kind of like, that was my first exposure to dating. It was not something that I wanted to do. I kind of was forced into it. But I think that kind of led me to this belief in the one, or like you have to date only if you know you're gonna marry that person. And that's impossible. And I feel like that puts a lot of pressure on yourself and on the other person. So I experienced that like when I was in my next relationship after my special friend. And
Your second special friend?
I had so much anxiety when I was like deciding to date this person, because I was like, if I'm not gonna marry this person, then why am I gonna go for it? And I feel like that's just too much pressure to put on yourself and the other person, because if you do end up going for it and you're like, all right, I am gonna marry this person, let's date them. They might not be thinking that, and now now you're expecting them to be like ready to commit to you and like marry you, even though like you've been dating for a week. And so I feel like that's a lot of unfair pressure. And it just like, it causes so much anxiety, and it's like, I feel like you really don't know if you're gonna marry somebody, and I'm speaking from a lack of experience here, but you're not gonna know you're gonna marry someone until you've dated them and walked through life with them and have gone through conflict together and have learned more deeply about each other and all of that. And you can't, I don't really agree with this idea that like, and this might happen for some people, but like you set eyes on this person and like, that's the one, that's who you're gonna marry. I don't really agree with that. So that had me messed up for a long time, is like this pressure of, all right, I can't date this person unless I'm gonna marry them. I feel like we gotta take that off the table.
No, that's good. And you're hitting something there too of like, that's something I found in my own life, that there's no formula. Like we all want relationships to be formulaic and like, like just tell me what to do so I can do the right thing. Or like, if you spend this much time with this person, you know, like these things are gonna happen. Like the escalation from hand holding to dancing to, you know.
Y equals MX plus B.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
do I? But yeah, that's something even in my own life I'm finding is like, relationships are not formulaic. For some people, like, you know, you hear the stories of someone who dated for like 2 weeks and then they pop the question and then they have like a 50-year marriage, and then you hear the people who like dated for 2 weeks, pop a question, and you know, are splitting up from each other a year later or something like that. And the other thing goes the other way. Like some people date for 3 years, you know, or 5 years, and then they can still end up getting divorced. And some people can date for, you know, like 3-4 years, and then they figure out it's right and it's a wonderful marriage. And reality is like, it's not a formula. It's something that each person has to figure out. And when we are focusing not just on the person across from us, but also looking intrinsically and also looking into a relationship with God, which I'm sure is something we'll kind of get into a little bit more in the next spot as well. But it leads to a lot healthier relationships. So, anything else you guys wanted to say on this end of the conversation? Sure, we're gonna get into some purity stuff and things like that, or the boundaries and stuff like that. But did you have something?
Glad we got married.
Aww. Awesome. So
I'm not always mad at you, I promise.
I've gotten so much better at doing the dishes. Also, for the record,
It really has. It really has.
Make something clear.
I kid you not. Like once I like brought it up, he like really like made a change. So that speaks to communication,
Also, you're
people.
actually a lot better at communicating than I am the worst in terms of communicating feelings specifically. True.
I love you though.
Yeah. I know you do, but it's true. That's a two-way street. Like that doesn't just apply to one side of the other.
Just to show you the difference between a married couple and a single person, I got better at doing dishes at an ice cream shop. That was my experience with dishes.
We're gonna go
Good
to break
work.
now.
Real talk. We're gonna go to intermission. There's bathrooms out there. There's drinks out there. If you guys need something, we're gonna put.
I won't be back up here.
Be back in here in 5 minutes.
They're gonna kick me off. I need to speak now before I get off the stage.
Counsel really quick, but yeah, go ahead, get up, stretch your legs. We're really thankful that you're here, and we're also too. We're gonna put up, Jared, if you could put up the Slido thing. if you want to ask questions, so you've heard a little bit about like the people up here, there might be something that spurred in your mind. We want to be able to answer your questions. So if you're here tonight, you have questions, go ahead and put them in the Slido. If you see somebody ask the question and you really want to hear the answer to that, you can like the question and then that'll push it up. And so then I'll be able to see that on my computer and we'll be more likely to ask you. So go ahead, take 5 minutes. We'll see you back here in 5. Jared, hit the music. This wasn't clear. Go to sli.do, SLI.do. It'll ask you for an event code. That's where you put this code in. Sli.do. 1 minute. If you guys are outside of here, come on back in. If you guys are in here, sorry, that was a little loud. Alrighty, we're gonna go ahead and get started back up here. Alrighty, we know everybody's coming back in. There was a big group enjoying some drinks and stuff. So please continue to like the questions that you want asked. I think there's over 25 questions on here at this point. And there's a pretty big deadlock. Oh, we got Dr. Phil on here. Dr. Phil, why weren't you invited? I don't know, man, because you got some whack stuff online. Or some great stuff, I don't know, whatever. Okay, we are jumping back into it. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for being willing and open to answer some of these questions. I mean, when we were planning for this, we didn't know what was going to come up, but we wanted to be ready, and they're excited to go into this with y'all. So the first question that we have on here, and this has been getting more and more traction over the course of the week, and then even tonight, this one popped up. The question reads, what role, and I think it's kind of a two-part question, what role does consent or a lack of consent play in your relationship? That's the bottom one, past/current. And then, how can men lead in consent? So it's kind of a two-parter. You can do
Right off the bat, I'm gonna say like you gotta have consent. Like whether you're married or like dating, like if someone's doing things with you, or if you're in a situation that you're uncomfortable in, that should not be happening. So that's like the first thing. Like absolutely, like do not be doing anything you're uncomfortable with, whether you're married or dating. And sometimes I know that that's hard to communicate, but like really, it's like no does mean no. And I think like your partner needs to respect
yes
that.
means no too. I think that's like, that might sound confusing, but it's good to like double check,
Right. That's a good call. Yeah, makes sense. No, I think that was really good, and you're hitting on it, because like sometimes we feel like marriage is just like, oh, there's now like a duty to the other person, or there's a responsibility that even if you feel like saying no, but you're saying you can still say no, and that needs to be respected in a marriage. And I think that that's really, really important to be heard. Other people consent before we hit the second part of the question. And if not, that's okay.
Yeah, so, Kaylee, kind of like what you were saying, you were talking about like it's hard to communicate that. It's hard to communicate consent, and I definitely relate to that. Like, in past relationships, something that's really hurt me is the inability to give full legitimate consent, because I wasn't really educated on a lot of the things that goes on. So like, for example, I wasn't super educated about what happens to women in sex, and what can happen for women in sex. I wasn't super, in my first relationships, I wasn't super aware about like orgasm and like really crucial parts of physical relationships with people. And because I didn't have that education, I didn't have that knowledge, it limited me in being able to confidently say no to certain situations. And that led to a lot of harm for me, because things were done to me that I didn't want done to me, And the situations that I'm thinking about right now are not abusive at all whatsoever. But I think it's important to note too that there's a very high percentage of people who have been abused that can't recognize the actions that were done to them as abusive. And I think that that's a really big problem. And I think for me, the more educated I became through, taking classes at college, like no joke, reading articles, going to doctors, listening to women who were married, who have had sex, who were open with that with me, the more I was able to actually like set good boundaries and feel good about them, but also I had the ability to say no, and I felt empowered, and I knew when to say no. And I think that was really important for me. So to answer the question, what role does consent play in your relationship? High. It is very high. It needs to be.
Really good. Okay, I'm going to stick to this question, but you brought up boundaries, and I want to make sure that we circle back to that. Actually, no, we're going to stay on that first, and then we'll go to the other part. How do you establish those healthy boundaries? And that's to the question to the panel at large, not just Libby, but how do you go about communicating and establishing boundaries? And in line with this question, you're like, is that just the man's job? Is that just the women's job to just say no? Is the man supposed to be pushing? I think that there's a lot of different things in here. So how do you guys go about that?
Okay. I feel like in a healthy relationship, just for starters, we establish boundaries. I don't establish boundaries and you don't establish boundaries. Those are things that we agree upon together. And if one of us doesn't agree on that, we continue to talk about it until we do. Because that's the basis of a healthy relationship. It's not either way, whether I was the one who dictated the boundaries and you didn't want those, or whether you were the one who dictated those boundaries and I didn't want those, that would not be healthy. And so I think the idea of we talk through everything and we come to a conclusion is key. That's in boundary making, for sure. In everything, but definitely in that.
I would say too, off that, obviously it's definitely both of you communicating them. And then I would also say whoever's boundary is stricter trumps the other boundary. So if there's a guy and a girl who are in a relationship, if the guy thinks that this is okay, but the girl only thinks that this is okay, or vice versa, then that person wins. That's where you stop. Because I think you definitely don't want to go past what someone else is worried about.
And something that I think can even happen, I know in my own life, there's something where it's there's a whole, spectrum of boundaries, right? And maybe you cross a line, with a partner that you felt was okay. But then afterwards you feel that wasn't okay. Or I feel wrong about that. You are allowed to communicate to your partner, I don't want to cross this boundary again. I actually want to revert back to where we were. And your partner has the responsibility to respect that. And I think that's really important. I think we feel if we've crossed a line, now we can't go back. But I think that's actually, the furthest thing from the truth. That's where grace comes in. That's where, healing and refocusing comes in. And I think that can actually remove shame when you're did something, don't feel right, let's go back. So I think that's really important to say. The second piece of this, we were talking about this question a little bit beforehand. We found interesting. How can men lead in consent? I'm curious to hear how you guys respond to that.
So on top of just the idea that both need to consent for it to be legitimate, I think there is an underlying idea of sometimes one partner is more informed about what's going on than another partner. And I think to expect the partner that's more informed to communicate, maybe not teach, but maybe point out some things. And so in this situation, and from my experience, the guys have been more experienced. And so I can understand where this question is coming from in that kind of context. But it really applies to either, I think. It's whoever's more informed, whoever feels like they know what's going on, there's a responsibility to make sure that you're receiving legitimate consent, from an educated person about, they know what's happening,
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's good.
Yeah, I think on the topic of leadership, I shouldn't put air quotes, but some people grew up with the perspective of mutual submission, right? So like you do everything together. And other people grew up with the perspective that, the man is supposed to lead, whatever that looks like, in the relationship. But I think that regardless of which perspective you grew up with, if you look at leadership as the way that Christ loves the church, then you look at leadership from a submissive standpoint, like leadership from a perspective of how can I serve and honor and respect this thing that has been entrusted to me, and that's like the whole, not to get all really Bible-y, but like the whole Philippians 2 passage of like Jesus giving up his godly nature to love us. Yeah. And to me, that like if you are looking at leadership healthily, if you grew up with that perspective, then you are looking at it as how can I serve and love this person the way that Jesus loves the church. Yeah.
I also think one of the things that's kind of on the more practical side of this is that, like, it is a very sensitive topic. Like, you're being intimate, and I think it's really good to like check more, like we talked about this, like check more than once whether something's okay. Like if you're sensing any hesitation, or even if you're just like, I don't know, like I think it's important just like, no matter whether it's the guy or the girl, like if you're doing something new, like ask if it's okay like multiple times, and then like rehash it just to make sure. Like, because maybe sometimes that person might need like more of more time to be like, you know what, actually, yeah, I am uncomfortable with this. Like they might need more time to process that.
And consent goes beyond sex too. Like your relationship partner doesn't have the right to force you to open up about things that you are not ready to open up about. Like it goes, and we have a question about that later anyways, but like consent, yeah, it goes to your emotions. It goes to your history. Like that consent is like, we went through like certain things where like we weren't ready to talk about certain things at certain points, and so we were like, all right, press pause on that conversation. Like we'll pick it up when we are ready to do that. You don't owe the person that you're in a relationship with anything. Like you don't owe them the inside parts of you, even if they tell you that you do. If that makes sense. Consent goes beyond sex, basically.
It can even be like consent to meet family. It can be consent to like those little things and stuff like that. But I think that's a really good point. Moving on from this question, I appreciate you guys going in on this. A little bit more of a, I guess, lighter question, but also something that's really, really worthwhile. How have you gone about, the question is, how have you gone about setting healthy boundaries for how much time you spend together, dating or married? We were talking about this one, and kind of the joke is like, we all know that friend who, once they get into a relationship, you never see them again until that relationship ends, and then they're all around you like all the time again, something like that. But in reality, like jokes aside, that's a really hard thing to do sometimes, is to balance those things. And so how do you guys build those boundaries together, and how do you go about it?
Yeah. I never like to speak first. I would say I figured some of that stuff out in my past relationships and have figured out a lot more of that as a single person, which is ironic. But I feel like I'm not super prepared, but more prepared now for how I'm gonna handle it. So like when I was in my past relationships, again, I keep harping on this point, but I was kind of a loner in high school and college. So like,
But you were cool.
yeah.
You still are
I wasn't
cool.
wearing cardigans yet, so I don't know.
You weren't as cool, but you were cool.
So, what was I talking about?
You're talking about
I don't know how else to say it.
That was the last thing I said, wasn't it? Yeah, being a loner, that's how, yeah. So I definitely struggled with that, where my relationships were kind of my everything. And so actually, by the end of some of my relationships, we did set healthier boundaries where, and I'm a very practical black and white person, so I don't want to paint something that, makes people uncomfortable to follow, but we actually set days and times that we were gonna see each other. And so especially when you're at college, if you're in college and you're dating someone, that makes it really hard to set time boundaries because you're literally with each other all the time. And so it was all right, we're not gonna spend every day doing homework in the library and then getting dinner every single night at the cafeteria and then going on dates every single day. We actually set times where it was all right, Friday night is date night, we'll do that. And then if we end up seeing each other like, mixed in, that's fine. But I think seeing your person every single day, all the time is unhealthy, especially if it's not in group settings. And so I think the one thing I've loved about being single for like the last 2 years now is I have established a community and a group of friends and a purpose, like in what I'm doing, in a way I never did before or during my relationship. And so now, like for my next relationship, I feel like I have my people that I'm gonna stay committed to. And I think if you plan, who you're with, to go around like the people that you are in community with, I think that's super important, because you don't want to be that person who just kind of disappears. So I guess my practical advice is, for me, I literally just like set days and times. Like, when are we gonna see each other? And then give yourself flexibility and freedom to see each other outside of those times, but definitely set them like, all right, these are our times we're gonna see each other, set specific date nights.
I actually think that's interesting that you said that, because in our marriage, we set that boundary for the opposite reason. Like, once we got married, we actually found that it was hard to find intentional time together. And I remember, again, being frustrated. Seems to be a common theme tonight. I do love you, though.
I'm lovable, but I'm frustrated.
But I remember a time, in all seriousness, when I was like consistently feeling frustrated every time he left the house, like to go do something. And some of these things were like really good things for him to be doing, like very life-giving things. And I realized like 2 things in that time. Like, I realized, one, that we didn't have enough time together because I felt jealous of everything else he was doing. And like, our marriage, we want our marriage to be our priority. And so that was the problem. But I also realized, like, I didn't have enough in my life, like on the flip side of that. Like, I wasn't doing enough things to keep myself a full individual. Like, so at that same time, I realized that like I needed to have more relationships that I was investing in and more things that I was doing to fill myself up. So.
So good.
Oh yeah, like how we do that practically? Yeah. We ended up just doing like date night once a week. Like, we literally sat Friday night is our date night, and we go out and we do something intentional. And that looks different week to week, but sometimes there's a week when, this is a Friday night. So obviously this is not our date night. Pretty lit. But like, so we'll switch the day. So it'll be like sometime earlier in the week. And to me, I found that was very freeing, because I knew that if we were busy throughout the week, I was like, but at least we have this time. So.
It's really good. Just real quick, one more thing. I'm not a huge all or nothing statement type of person, but I will say, if you are single or if you are dating, not many good things happen after midnight. And I say that with the utmost respect for all people.
Time limits.
Amen. And all sleep schedules and all that, but like, go to bed, go home, kiss your other person goodnight. I from personal experience, it doesn't go.
Who's the other person?
What?
Who's the other person? What?
What do you mean?
You said
Kiss your other person.
Oh, I thought you meant like go home and then kiss your other person. Like, what? Like, what's happening here? This is not what we're trying to promote.
No. To the cameras. No.
You lost me at other person. I was
All right,
lost.
we're gonna be having a conversation later.
This is why I have a conversation with PB next week.
The point is, go to bed. Don't stay up past 12 a.m. and be with that buddy. It generally speaking doesn't lead to good things. That's my 2 cents on time boundaries.
That's so good. Even in friendships or like even in dating and stuff, you can feel like you're in the middle of like a really important conversation, but especially like if there's an emotionally charged conversation you're having, it is not just okay, it is healthy and responsible to say, let's press pause, let's talk about this tomorrow, because right now it is getting late and we are not thinking like ourselves. Or even if you're hungry, like that, that's a silly thing, but that can also be a really big thing. So with that, going to a little bit more of a serious topic, I think that this is a big one, and they have some things labeled in here, but I think it's pretty far-reaching, right? So it says how to have healthy discussions within a relationship about trauma, parentheses, sexual/emotional abuse, cheating, etc. And how do you set like healthy expectations and boundaries, which we started to go into within the consent conversation. But 4 things that have been more traumatic for you. How do you go about talking about them when you talk about them, stuff like that?
First of all, for anyone that's experienced any kind of deep trauma, like, I am really sorry. Like, that is very sad. And like, that is not something to walk through alone. Like, I just wanted to start by saying that, because I think like that stuff is real and it is deep. And like, you know, you might not even have ever told anyone before. And so like, I just want to encourage you, like, there is hope and healing. And I want to start it by saying that. I can continue. All right, I'll keep going. One of the things that like, I had something that I waited to tell John because I wanted to make sure that he could carry that burden with me. And I think like sometimes there's this tendency to feel like you need to maybe bring that up like right away or something. And I think like that's not true. Like, that person needs to earn your trust. And like, once he did earn my trust, when I shared that with him, like, it was actually a really powerful, encouraging moment for me. Like, I was really scared to do that, but it also like actually brought like a renewed perspective to me, which was actually like, and it put me on a track towards like actually continued healing, which was really cool. But I think like, to me, it took time for him to earn that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah.
No, that's good. I think that sometimes even it is important to wait to share some of those experiences, because sharing, vulnerable things or sharing traumatic experiences can almost be a way to create intimacy with somebody else. Like, you know this about me and now I feel closer to you. And that's not always a conscious thought even, that could be a subconscious thing. But I think it's really important sometimes to wait. I know, like, personally in my life, like, there's a specific thing that happened in my life that I've probably maybe told like 6 people now at this point, something like that. But like, that's a story that for my significant other, they, like, I waited a long time to share that with them because it was something that was so important to me, and not important, but like, I hopefully you get what I'm saying. Not important, but like a really big deal in my life that, I didn't want to just tell anyone. I wanted to actually be responsible with that story and like with what happened and stuff. But like, when I did share it, like, I was terrified. I was really scared to, like, to share that story with that person. But they were ready for it, and how they responded did create, like a new level of intimacy, but also like relief and freedom within myself of like, okay, like, this, you still see me, and it reaffirms the truth that I think really exists, that in any healthy relationship, like, we are not our traumas, we are not the things that have happened to us, and it's important that people are able to see past that, and love us for who we are and stuff. And so I think that's the beautiful thing that can happen, but it's responsible to wait for that and take time and, be straight up about it. Like, hey, like, I'm gonna tell you about something that's really deep. And now this is like personal, right? This isn't formulaic, this is personal, but like for me, it was like, I'm going to tell you this story. I need you to know it's gonna be really difficult for me. Please be patient, and I created the space, I created the, the standards for it, and my significant other just entered into it with me. I was really thankful for that, but it took time.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
I think something too, like, just practically speaking, I think all of you guys were talking about the idea of trust. And I think a really good way to know that someone is trustworthy is just by watching and observing how they handle other information that you give them, you know? And like, it's a build-up, and it can be, and that's okay. And not to be like manipulative and like you're giving them a test, but just be observant. Like, watch how they're handling your information, and watch how they comfort you, and you know, and you can go from there. And I think you'll feel when the time is right. You'll feel when the person is trustworthy enough, you know?
Yeah. That's really good. Love that. I'm going to move on from this question unless you guys had anything else you wanted to.
Will you share how it was receiving me sharing?
Sure. I guess like, I think I learned from previous relationships in which I did not support the person as well as they should have been supported. And then looked back and was like, wow, like without knowing it, I was hurting that person because I was in a position to come alongside them and bear a burden with them, and I didn't. So when I got to the point where we were in a relationship and you told me that, like the core understanding that I had was like, this is the person that I have chosen to intertwine myself with. So in a non-sexual way at that point. But so I was like, so therefore, like, this is my burden to bear with you. And I want you to know that like now every step that you take, we take together. And I think that if you're someone who's hearing that and you're in a relationship, I think one, you don't have a responsibility to be the counselor for that person. You can point them to people that might be able to give them help that you cannot, but you are not responsible for that yourself, and that's not a burden that you should take on. It's not healthy to have that dual relationship, but you can tell that person that now they don't walk that road alone.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, and being on the other side of that too, that was a good point on there. Like, consent also goes into it, right? Am I allowed to ask you questions as you're sharing these things with me, or do you want me to just listen? You know, like how John was just saying, like sometimes you can inadvertently like cause hurt to someone. Like someone's trusting you with, you know, their happenings, you know, like their dealings. Like that's a really big deal, and that's something to be overly careful or of, and like overly, you know, like protective of. So it's really good. Moving on from that question, we started talking about this a little bit, and it's going to center on roles a little bit in manhood, womanhood, and by the way, there's a ministry for that, 2 ministries for that.
Shameless plug.
Next Friday, shameless plug, 6:30 p.m. I'll see you here. But should the man lead the relationship? If so, how / in what ways? If not, how should the couple lead each other? And I appreciate whoever asked this question because you kind of hit like everything, so thank you very much. But yeah, should the man lead? If so, how? In what ways? And if not, how should the couple lead each other?
Okay, sorry guys. Miscommunication. I feel like that is actually more of a question that relates to how you want your relationship to look. Because some people come from backgrounds that we talked about earlier, that like what the man says goes, and the woman submits to that. And I think I personally like am different in that way. Like I
Strong, independent, don't need no man.
all right, let's not get carried away.
So wait, John, would you say that strong women can be attractive to godly men?
This one is for sure.
Thank you. I needed that.
Kelly really like that question. Whoever asked that question,
Yeah, whoever asked that question, thank you. I needed that. But I think like we talk about making our decisions together. We talk about mutual submission. When we're working through something and we can't come to an agreement on it, we usually go to a third party and ask them to help us work through it. And I think this is hard because different relationships look different. So like, if you want to have a different dynamic in your relationship, you just need to communicate that clearly to each other. And that is a decision that needs to be made together, and how that looks needs to be made together. Maybe there's pushback on that, I don't know.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. I think even biblically, right? Like, because we do want to go back to scripture and like what scripture has to say on any of this. And scripturally, like, it can be really easy to read something, without putting context to it and just say like, oh, like there's this one verse that says this one thing, so I'm going to do it. But when you actually look at the context of scripture itself, we see that there is, responsibilities given to like men and women, but also like when you actually look into what those responsibilities are, you see a lot of similarity within it. It's all centered on love. It's all centered on caring for each other. And it's all centered on serving one another in a mutual submission kind of relationship. Like Paul talks to men about loving their wives like Christ loved the church. And the love that Christ showed his church is the most radical thing that this world has ever seen. And it was literally putting all of Christ's own desires, like when Paul says that, don't forget about the Garden of Gethsemane. Don't forget about the moment where Jesus is literally crying tears because, or like crying blood because he's aware of what's about to happen. Like that's the kind of love that is supposed to be shown. Go ahead.
I will say, if you are a woman who feels oppressed by this scripture in the terms of like when it does say like wives submit to your husbands, like I would really encourage you to like dive into what the scripture is saying and what it means, and like look for books on different perspectives. I know Laurel has books wherever you are. But because that's not something to keep living under. I think I would just challenge you and encourage you, like dive into what that means, find out, ask people, read the Bible, like figure it out, because I know that the Bible is not that. I know that God affirms and loves women, so.
I wanted to add something to John, what you were saying about love. So I think an aspect about love that's really important is respect. And it's something that maybe can get missed if, like Kaylee was saying, if you're reading the scripture and you feel like oppressed by it, you feel disconnected from it. I think love includes respect, like respect for your partner and your partner's respect for you, a man's respect for a woman and a woman's respect for a man. And I think like it definitely looks like respect can, and how you give respect and how you receive respect can look different from each partner, each relationship. But I think if that's missing, you're going to feel oppressed by the leadership of the partner. So maybe instead of focusing on like the wording of like who's the leader in the relationship, maybe like asking, do I feel loved? Do I feel respected? On both sides too. I'm obviously a woman, I'm coming from that perspective, yeah. But I think men too.
Oh, that's really good. Just something you want to add?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, when we talk about submission, you're not talking about, I would assume, you're not talking about times that you agree, because nobody's asking the question of who submits to who if you agree on what you're doing. You're talking about times that you don't agree, right? Yeah. Generally speaking. So I think we focus then on these passages that talk about submission and leadership, and I love those passages, and I think they're important. But I think about like you as an individual, me as an individual, like are you quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry in a situation where you don't agree with the person that you're in a relationship with? what if you both were quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry? Wouldn't that change the outcome of those things? And wouldn't you be less focused on who should be submitting to who and more focused on achieving a solution together?
Let's go. That's a tweet. Love that.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. He gave me a look of support.
I was not in full support.
Paul, by the way, just throwing this one out here. I'm going to say we have like two questions left. We're going to talk about purity and stuff like that, and then if there's one more question you want asked, make sure that you're liking it so that we can get to it. But the one side question is, Paul,
Oh God.
are you single? Haha, JK.
But
About
seriously,
15 dots, unless. This is the face that they wanted me to make. It literally says, is Paul single? Haha, JK.
What does that mean?
Unless.
Come on, man.
I don't know. They want to know.
Paul, I think someone wants to go on a date with you.
if you, at the end of the night, we're gonna put Paul's phone number up there.
Yeah, that's actually, we didn't tell him about
You
that.
can text
but
him your questions about relationships.
We are going to play one more round of the game, actually, when it gets.
I feel like that's not someone. I feel like that's not someone who wants to go on a date. That was probably Nick Bone. And if it's Nick Bone, the answer is yes.
That does have Nick Bone wording.
Is there another game? If I win a leaf from being gift card, me and Nick Bone will be going on a date.
We're not actually playing another game. I'm so sorry.
Was it you? All right, yes, Caleb.
Wait. Okay.
Sorry, Livy.
All right. Real talk. Okay, so 2 questions left. Question number 1 that I'm going to ask you, and I think that I'm going to combine 2 questions that are up here. So the question above that has the most likes is, how do you and your partner recover from porn use and build a healthy, beautiful relationship? Which I think is a really worthwhile question. Also, we're going to be talking about ministry centered around that at the end of it tonight. So that's coming up. But the second question is, what does purity before marriage look like, and why does it matter, if it matters at all? Is the parentheses that they have on there. But I think that porn use or like other areas like that could be important. And so, how do you navigate boundaries? How do you set those? Purity. Let's talk about it. Ding.
I can start.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so I've walked through a very specific situation regarding that question. So I struggled with porn in high school. Not even high school, I think 13 is when I discovered it. And so I walked through that from 13 through high school and then through maybe my first 2.5 years of college. And I started dating in my freshman year of college. So I went a good 1.5 years dating while watching porn, which was, I can speak to how unhealthy that is, incredibly unhealthy. The first time I told someone that I was watching was in my senior year of high school. So I was getting help, but I couldn't seem to shake it. And what I wanted to do was tell the person I was with that I had beaten it and that I was not struggling with it. So my goal was to beat it before telling them, which I would not recommend. Because then when they ask about it, and then you got to tell them, and it's awkward. So I would say, that is a very unhealthy thing. And I could get, push back on this, but I would say don't date or start a relationship if you're watching porn. I'd say that's just a hard line. If you're in a relationship and you were already struggling, I'd say break it off until you can beat it, because I have seen the unhealthiness of it. It caused me to push boundaries that I didn't want to push. It caused me to be disrespectful of the person I was with, because I had so much of this sinful part that was, not healthy. And so I've experienced that side of it, but then the most freeing thing I experienced was that I was actually able to beat it while still in the relationship. And I saw the flip side of that, of how freeing that was, not only just to beat it, but also to like let a part of myself be fully known. Because I felt like when that part of myself was known, I was fully known by that other person. So yeah, that's my like practical advice is don't enter or be in a relationship if you're currently watching porn. It's unhealthy. It'll make you push boundaries. You won't look at the person you're with a healthy lens. You're going to look at them more in an objective way, and you won't, really respect them in the way that you need to.
I just want to say, real talk, that's a very brave thing to share. So shout out to you for real. That's the real deal. So.
Yeah, and to ask you like a clarifying question, would you say that there's a difference between like being in pornography addiction versus like post that having the struggle of like staying away from it kind of thing?
What do you mean? Can you say that again? Sorry.
So like, would you say, you were saying like don't date if you're like watching pornography. Now what if like I have the temptation to watch it, like should I still not be dating if I'm still feeling those temptations?
No, well, I mean, it depends on how much time has gone by, and that's like very subjective. But I'd say like if you've gone a week without watching porn, you're not ready to start dating. I would like, all right, I'm free. No, you're not free yet. You can have good stretches. You're not free yet. You're just in a high moment. I would say, I don't want to give a timeline for that. I'd say months. Even for me, it was comfortable to be like close to a year. My situation was tricky because we actually continued to date in between. So like we didn't end it. And maybe going back I would have, but it also is the reason that I broke free from it. So I don't know if I would have. But I would say, let's say like you just beat it. And now you have the chance to enter. I would give it a good several months, maybe 6 months, even maybe a year. I don't know. That would be, and then, but whatever the timeline is, if you feel like you have gone past it enough, but you still have temptation, that's where you need people. And so for me, it was a good several guys who were constantly keeping me accountable. So I to this day still text in every single day, like a clean number of how long I've gone without watching porn. And so I would say, if the temptation is always going to come back. It will always come back. I've been years in and it still comes back. So you need people. So whether you're a guy or a girl, I would say you can be in a relationship and be tempted as long as you have people who are going to hold you accountable.
That's good. Awesome. Moving to, Oh yeah, so moving to the other side of that, purity before marriage, what the heck does that mean? What does that mean to you
Yeah,
guys?
Kaylee, what does it mean? Tell the people.
Thanks for that.
No, I love you. I go. So, for us, purity before marriage was we set goals, and our boundaries changed to fit those goals. So our goal pre-marriage was we were like, we are going to actively try not to orgasm at any point. So whether you're making out with each other or whatever you deem, we were not going to do any activities that geared them towards us seeking that goal for each other and for ourselves. So at one point that was like, we set some time that we had to go to bed. Like we were like, we're not staying up past this time. I think.
I don't remember that.
Okay, maybe not. We didn't set up that time, but don't stay up past midnight. All right, but like so, I don't know. At one point, okay, I know this one for a fact. At one point, it was like, okay, we couldn't be laying down together next to each other, alone. Like we had to be sitting up when we were going to be together alone. You don't remember this?
No.
Oh, I have a distinct memory. This one I promise I know. I promise.
Okay, that might be true.
So like basically we were like, okay, we knew that when we got to a point where we were laying down next to each other, we were gonna move a direction that would result in us actively moving towards orgasm. So we were
I remember now.
so we were like, okay, so for this season, like we're gonna sit up next to each other when we're alone. But that wasn't every season. Like the goal remained the same, which was we are going to try not to achieve orgasm, which is the goal of sex, while we are not married, and therefore we will do whatever is necessary to fit that. And we didn't always achieve that goal, but that was the goal. Like, honestly.
It was a goal.
Yeah.
And I think that's like that. I think that's real though. Like sometimes you cross the boundaries that you set. And then we had conversations about it and we found ways to keep ourselves accountable to that. And I think, I don't know, I think there's a lot of shame around this topic too. And so like, I just want to be like, we crossed our boundaries. We did. But like, we talked about it and we went, like, we found accountability to go back to where we wanted them to be. And I think the question is to like, why do that? Like, why does it matter? Like, why avoid
Why not
that?
just sow your wild oats?
I don't know why you say that. Oh gosh. There is a biblical basis for that, but I'm not going to go into that. And also, I'm just going to move forward from what you said. I'm not going to go on the biblical basis. I'm going to go from like my personal experience. Like, once we got married and we started having sex, to me, that was, it had a totally different shift of physical, like our relationship nature, like totally shifted physically. And it became so much more about like connection with one another. And it felt like a really safe place to do that. Like it felt like a safe place to explore like, how to like go about sex and like, because honestly, like, I don't know if people have told you this, but sex can be like hard. Like, I feel like maybe that needs to be said. And I think like, for me, like, if I didn't have his commitment to me up front, I would have had so much more to work through in terms of like, well, am I doing this well? Instead of asking the question of like, well, how are we learning to connect with one another more, right? Like and the flip side, it was like, well, how am I doing good enough? Like, you know what I mean? Like that question changes when you're in the covenant of like, you know, that person is going to be with you and is going to stay with you, and you're going to have the next 50 years to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, Pastor Bob always said, like, before I would give you the greatest gift that I could give you, I want you to make the greatest promise that you could ever make to me, which is till death do us part. And so to me, like, you're exactly right. Like, it changes the mindset from, am I doing this well enough to keep this person with me, to, I know that this person loves me regardless of what I am like in this situation, and we can grow together.
Yeah, and I think that's about like the fullness of the experience. Like that's the experience we were intended to have, was like this amazing connection of someone that has made this promise to you.
Yeah, sex was not meant to be anxiety inducing or a means to keep someone in a relationship with you. It was meant to be like blossom out of the love that we were given for each other.
Really good, guys. Was there anything that you wanted to shoot in on this? Was there anything you wanted to shoot in on this before I moved on, or?
I think, okay, another good rule of thumb, it kind of like in practical speaking in terms of like boundaries in relationships, I think something that maybe needs to be prioritized more is emotional intimacy, and just like how, like, I don't know, making sure your physical intimacy is not more so or greater than your emotional intimacy, because that's how you establish trust. That's how you are gonna in turn know commitment and get commitment. And you know, that leads into a healthy marriage commitment too. So I think that like, I think that's important. And I also know like, it's hard to take away something without replacing it with something else. So if you're taking away physical intimacy in a dating relationship, right? Or I guess, not complete physical intimacy, but like sex, orgasm, intercourse, whatever your boundaries are. You want to replace that with something else in your mind so you don't feel like you're lacking. I feel like it's a good like mental practice, you know? And so replacing that idea with like, all right, I'm gonna focus on emotional intimacy. I'm gonna focus on our emotional attachment and engagement. That has been really helpful for me. So, yeah.
No, that's really good. Yeah, I think that, to what John and Kelly were saying, like, for myself, I've always, not always, I have come to view a healthy boundary being like not achieving orgasm. Like that is the boundary that I've set for myself. And I think that that's the most like God honoring boundary I've been able to find within the grayness of dating. Because like dating is is a gray area. Dating is not in the Bible. And that doesn't mean that we can't apply biblical principles to it, because we apply so much of scripture to things that aren't mentioned in the Bible, so it's a very common practice. But that doesn't also mean that like you're trying to do everything up to that moment, or that achievement, whatever, so that you can enjoy the fullness of it without crossing your boundary. It's like the whole point of this is like when you submit to a boundary, it's because you're actually placing trust in God that his vision for sex is better than your vision for sex. And that's something I try to do in my own life. It's like, I'm not gonna like, oh gosh, like, I just don't wanna cross this, I don't wanna cross that, I don't wanna cross this. It's like, okay, God, like, I'm gonna trust that like, if I wait until the context of marriage to engage in this aspect of the gift that you've given me, it's actually going to be better and more healthy for myself and my partner, because it's your will and it's not my will. And that to me is the important thing. And so it sounds weird, but like it's an act of worship to me, like onto God, to actually like not try to cross the boundaries that I feel like he's placed for us, because he actually loves us and cares about us. So that's that. And that there is grace when there's things that mess up, and that's why even like orgasm is not necessarily achieved like just in sex. And so it's a way to kind of hopefully set a boundary before that. And maybe your boundary is way further away. Maybe you don't feel comfortable kissing someone. Like I know people who don't feel comfortable kissing before marriage. That's okay. If that's your boundary, like if that's what you've decided for yourself, then like you need to communicate that to your partner. And if your partner's not okay with it, then that's their issue. And honestly, like if your partner is trying to push you past a boundary that you feel comfortable with, then that's a conversation that needs to be had, because that's not the role of a man or a woman, because it goes both ways. I think sometimes men get the brunt edge of this, but it does go both ways. Like if you are pushing someone past a boundary they have set, you are not loving them, you are self-gratifying yourself. And so that's just something that I think is really important. So last but not least, moving on, we have one last question, and I want to hit this quick. I know we've run a little bit long here, but I think that this is really important, and thank you everybody for your amazing questions. I think that there's going to be some stuff that we might do with these extra questions, whether it's in our men's and women's ministries or other things. But the last question that I want to ask, and I think this is really important. Person asked, sometimes it feels like single Christians feel less than their married friends when they're single. This is obviously not true, but how do you battle this thought? I know I felt that. I know that, I'm sure a lot of people on the stage have felt that at different times. So how do you guys engage with that question?
Yeah, want me to represent the singles? I have definitely felt that. In both aspects, I have friends now who are married, who are my age, and all of my siblings are married. Well, except for my younger brother who's engaged. So literally most people in my circle are married. And I've definitely walked through that where I have felt less than people who are married. Because I feel like marriage is viewed as the ultimate goal in life. Like you're born, you go through school, you go to college, you get a job, and then you get married. And then you just coast for the rest of your life. Like that's what marriage is, I think, in our culture. Huh? Did I say something again?
No, I thought it was great.
Oh, okay.
At the very least, it's a benchmark,
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's a great thing to go for. But I feel like in our culture, and at least for me and a lot of young adults, that's it. And if you don't get married, then when are you gonna get married, or what are you doing wrong? Like that's how it's viewed. And so definitely like in the early stages before my relationships and then after my last relationship, I had lots of moments where I felt less than married couples, 100%. And it wasn't until and this took a long time, I'd say over a year. Wasn't until I found not just like the contentness in being single. Like, I don't think you should just be content in singleness where you're just like, all right, I'm good for now and I'm just waiting. I think you should find full purpose in your singleness and like a passion to go for. And so it wasn't until I found that. So that was in many ways. That was in my individual relationship with God, in new community I established, and in like my career, like in teaching. It wasn't until I became a whole purpose-driven person that I no longer felt like singleness was less than marriage, and I no longer felt like I was just waiting for marriage. And I 100% desire marriage, and I'm, ready to go when it comes. But, and I think that's good too. I think side note, if you're single and you desire marriage, that's okay. Like, that's a good thing, because it's a good thing. And so I think we feel like we're not gonna be ready for marriage until we don't desire it. Like, that's not true. Like, you can be a content, purpose-driven single person and still desire marriage. And I feel like that's the place I've gotten to, where I no longer feel like I'm in this stage of waiting. I'm in the stage of opportunity, where I'm like, all right, I have full commitment to my kindergartners and full commitment to my friends and full commitment to my family. And I see it as an opportunity of like, okay, I don't have this person that I am attached to who needs to take the majority of my time. Like, that's gonna be great when I have that, but it's an opportunity not to have that. And so I feel like you just have an opportunity to live a full life for God and for other people. So if you see yourself that way, that's normal. I have definitely felt that and still feel that from time to time. But like, find purpose, find, who God is calling you to be, and like, go full force with it. Like, enjoy your single years and like, have fun with it.
Come on, Paul Nichols. I think that's a good place to end it right there. Well done, Paul Nichols. Unless someone else really wanted to jump in, but I feel like you hit everything.
Come on, outdo me.
Chuck it in if you got it.
All right.
Throw it in.
I just think like Paul nailed it in the sense of like, he used the term a purpose-driven life. Like, we were single once, right? Not that long ago. Like, you change the metric by the way that you change the perspective of I am less than is you change the metric. Like, God does not, I joke about it being a benchmark, right? Like, God, it's not a benchmark for God. And biblically, that's true. Like, marriage is not a benchmark that you have to hit in your in your journey of Christianity, in your journey of following God. It's not necessarily a part of the purpose-driven life that He has for you. Now, it could be, and that's why I agree that it's not wrong to desire that thing. But it's about changing the metric to see the purpose that God has given you, because the reality is you could get in that relationship and you could get in that marriage and your purpose could still be derived by something other than what it should be derived by. It could be driven by your job. It could be driven by your sex life within your marriage. It could be driven by the number of friends or the influence that you have. But at the end of the day, you have to realign that purpose regardless of where you're at to see what God actually is calling you to.
No, amen. That's so good. Guys, thank you so much for being on this panel. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Give them a round of applause. You guys can go ahead and head on back. Thank you. You can leave them right there. Thanks. Awesome. So, guys, thank you so much. If we didn't get to your question, I'm so sorry. We do have some plans for what we're going to do with these other questions. They're in development. I'm really thankful we get to hold on to them. We're going to close out here tonight. Before we do, I want to let you know about one other ministry that we're launching right now. It came up in the questions in here, and it's something that honestly has been coming up for years since Outpost started. And it has to do with pornography. Pornography is a real issue. It's hitting, I'm sure, at least half, if not more, of the people in this room. The statistics are wild right now as far as like how many people engage with it. People get shown this stuff when they are super young. And so we want to address it head on. And so we have some people who are really passionate about helping people find freedom. And we have a video to let them talk about it a little bit. So we'll play that.
Personally, I've had my own struggles in this area, as many men my age have. And so coming out of it and looking at the opportunity to help those come alongside me was obviously a very attractive option. So I was just, praying, and God really put it on my heart to do something, just anything. And so I started to go down that path, and it ended up kind of building itself through conversations with different Calvary members. And just people of like mind and like heart, like Rebecca here, who have a passion to help those that are in need.
I'm someone who's really passionate about women being able to be free from the guilt and their shame in their life. And I think being a part of this ministry can really help women kind of walk through breaking that bondage of porn and stepping into freedom and redemption.
In essence, it's a mentor-mentee program targeting discipleship and targeting porn usage. It's trying to lead us towards God and away from porn in a very structured and organized way, but also with the community and love needed to actually make that happen. As you're going along, there's going to be a lot of conversations with your mentor that will decide your progress, how much longer do you have in this program. The ideal is a 90-day journal. You're going through these 90 days, and hopefully that sets you on the path that will inevitably get you out of your porn addiction.
This ministry is for anyone, whether you're a man or a woman. We know that everyone has the risk of struggling with pornography, and so if you're a young adult that struggles with this ministry is for you. So we understand that pornography can be a sensitive subject for some, and we want you to know that if you do choose to sign up for this, only 3 of us will have access to those signups: John Abarca, myself, and Casey. The way that you can sign up for this is by talking to any of us individually when you see us, or by signing up at the link that's provided. So if you're on the fence about signing up for this program, I want you to know that the freedom and redemption that's on the other side of this program is so worth it. It might be difficult to sign up at first, but I really want you to be able to walk in freedom from guilt and shame that's in your life, and this program is a way you can do that.
What would your life look like without porn? What would your life look like when relationships are more fulfilling, they're more plentiful, and they're more real? And then what it would look like for an entire church to have that be a reality. That's what this ministry is for, and it's for everyone. So please come, let's deal with it together, and let's build a better future.
Yeah, that deserves a round of applause. Casey Pritchard came to, he's been coming to the church for a long time, but he came to us back last summer and just shared his vision. He had, I think it was over 60 journals for people to walk through, just to engage with overcoming the addiction and the psychological realities of pornography addiction. And it's something that he's been really passionate about. He and I got to talking about it. Eventually we reached out to Rebecca Young, who was really passionate about helping women find freedom from this addiction as well. And we're just so excited to launch this program. And like Casey said, it's a mentorship program. There's journals that are involved to help you both grow out of your addiction, but we also believe that it involves growing closer to God and building relationship with God. And so those things go hand in hand. It's a mentorship program, so you would be paired with someone. And again, Rebecca, Casey, and I are the only ones who see that, and that's so that we can help people find the best fits for mentors, and all that information remains very confidential. So if that's something that you are struggling with your life, we want you to know those signups are now open. You can go to the link that was on there. We're going to be putting these videos up on Outpost, so you'll be able to find that link. If you ever have questions about it, you can DM one of us, talk to one of us. We'll make sure that you can get signed up. And this is going to be an open thing, so it's not like you have to sign up tonight or it's going to get missed. It's going to be like if this comes up 3 months down the road and you're like, I want to go after this, link's going to be open. We're here for you. We're excited for it. So, guys, thank you so much for coming tonight. I hope that this was worthwhile. I hope we were able to answer questions that you had. If you can bow your heads with me, I'm going to pray us out, and then we'll bounce out. God, we are thankful for today. We are thankful for the opportunities you give us to grow, to learn. And I pray that in our relationships that we would be able to honor you, whether it's in romantic relationships, whether it's in our community, our friends, family. We want our relationships to ultimately help us grow closer to you, help other people grow closer to you, and to honor you. We love you. Walk with us. Help us to learn more about what it means to be men and women next week, so that we can be the men and women that you've created us to be. Thank you for the freedom you're going to bring. And glory be to you. Amen. Amen, guys. Thank you so much for joining. There's still snacks outside. Have a wonderful night.